Hello, check, 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 check. Yeah, okay. Should be going live. Okay. So I read a lot of comments yesterday from people who were uh, were sharing some of the advice that they'd received and from great pop songs. And I kind of went through and I went through a playlist of a lot of different songs getting ready. And I mean, there's hundreds of songs. We could do like 15 or 16 volumes of this thing, or really hundreds. I mean, there's so many great songs out there. Um, and In my estimation, uh, I went through and I decided I'd start from when I was at a very young age and go from there. So I remember as a kid growing up in the 80s, it was kind of started with Let's Go Crazy, right? Dearly beloved, we're all gathered here to get through this thing called life. Uh, and that was the sermon being preached by the great Prince, and that gave some great advice about what was about to come. Um, and boy, were we in for it. And then, of course, songs like "Sister Christian," which was actually written as Kelly, the drummy or the drum drummy, the drummer, to his kid sister, who he's kind of telling her to watch out for guys out there, and he called it Sister Christian. His sister's name was Christy, but the lead singer uh, thought that he was talking about saying Christian, and so we actually have the story of that with the members of Sister Christian that we'll release down the road. So we'll release that one. But that was great advice. Great advice song. Of course, Van Halen gave advice when I was a young kid. In Jump, a lot of different things there. You got to roll with the punches to get to what's real. That was great advice. Tears for Fears. I mean, they even had a song called "Advice for the Young at Heart." Um, Elvis, "Don't Be Cruel to a Heart That's True." Great advice. But I want to get into this by starting with the Beatles. I mean, the Beatles, All You Need Is Love, Let It Be. I mean, the song titles were all about advice, about, the world that we were living in and facing. But one of my favorites was The End. It's the last song that actually all four Beatles were on together, that they recorded. And the last statement that they made on record collectively, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And Paul McCartney always said that he wanted to end with a little meaningful couplet, um, and that was written by Paul. But again, the last song recorded by all four Beatles, intended as their parting words. Nothing really gets more powerful than that. They knew that they'd be breaking up, and even though Let It Be was released as the last album, Abbey Road was recorded last. And so, uh, really, what I took from that was the love that they'd experienced from everyone collectively, and was the same empowering love that they put into their music and that they invested into their work. Final message is interesting from the Beatles. The Fab Four was of love. Then, of course, Rolling Stones. I saw quite a few people who were posting about the Stones, and you can't always get what you want, which is obvious. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, well, you might find you get what you need. I mean, great advice there. Get what you need. So that would mean a lot more to me, and I think many other people on this. When you heard it as a kid, as I did, my dad had the records of the Stones. It meant a whole lot to me, a lot more to me growing up after many years in my late 30s, early 40s. That meant more to me. It certainly did in my early 20s. But as a young kid growing up, Vienna, Billy Joel was my favorite artist. And Billy Joel, for me, Vienna was a song that my dad had that on 8-track. He had The Stranger on 8-track. I'd go out to a shop and we would work in the shop. He'd usually pay me some money to sweep the shop and do some other things. I'd take that money and buy records or cassettes, later CDs with it. And I always loved that time because I got a chance to spend time with my dad, to listen to his stories. I've talked about it in many of my videos, but uh, he had some great 8 tracks, everything from Zeppelin to the Eagles, Billy Joel, Springsteen, all the great stuff, all the classic stuff, Motown, Hendrix, a lot of different things. But I remember one time distinctly listening to The Stranger. I was going through a bit of a hard time, and he said, "You know, you should listen to this song. This is great advice." And It's been a song now that my dad has passed that I've gone back and listened to. And if you don't know that song, obviously it wasn't a single, but it has become more popular in Billy Joel's catalog. It's been used in some movies, 13 Going on 30. I remember they used it there. I was so happy to see that they used it there. Uh, Such a great song, one of his best. But slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile. But then, if you're so smart, tell me why are you still so afraid? Where's the fire? What's the hurry about? You better cool it off before you burn it out. You got so much to do and only so many hours in a day. Those lyrics are so great for, I mean, I feel that way about my kids. Slow down. Everything's going to be fine. You got plenty of time to figure out what you want to do with your life and where you want to go. And I love the very end. He repeats it from the chorus. But when the truth is told that you can get what you want or you can just get old, you're going to kick off before you even get halfway through. When will you realize Vienna waits for you? And I love it because for anybody out there that has Billy Joel's greatest hits, he put out something back in 1998, I believe it was, where he put out his third volume of greatest hits. I mean, he's had so many hits. And he put out a box set that had volume 1, 2, and 3, and then it had 4 in there, a fourth disc, which was of his question and answer sessions that he does, which is essentially what got me into wanting to go out and interview and get the stories behind these songs straight from the artist. But he tells, I mean, he's such a great storyteller. That's why he's such a great writer. And he shared a story about Vienna where he saw somebody sweeping up. He went to visit his dad in Vienna and saw somebody sweeping up on the side of the street there. And he was saying something. His dad said, something derogatory or something like that, if memory serves. And his dad just said, "Look at that person. Uh, they're they've got a job. They're doing something to make the community better." And he always thought of Vienna. Vienna waits for you. Something great waits for you. And I thought that was always very interesting. Later in life, Billy Joel's lyrics have meant so much. I mean, Summer Highland Falls, how thoughtlessly we dissipate our energies. Perhaps we don't fulfill each other's fantasies. And as we stand upon the ledges of our lives with our respective similarities, it's either sadness or euphoria. I mean, that's deep stuff. The critics have always ripped Billy Joel apart when I was growing up. I never understood it. I think he's an incredible lyricist, very, very underappreciated. Keeping the faith. The good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. Kind of talking about nostalgia is great, but we also need to be looking at the future. His lyrics have meant so much more as I've gone through life. Now, when I got into high school and felt alone, was trying to figure out who I was and what it was all about. The Smiths and Depeche Mode and The Cure, that became my go-to music. It became the answer to a lot of these problems that I was going through. And I Know It's Over has a great line in it I've always tried to, kind of a mantra that I've always tried to live my life with is uh, it's so easy to laugh. It's so easy to hate. It takes strength to be gentle and kind. That's the lyric. It's so easy to laugh. It's so easy to hate. And then he says it again. It takes guts to be gentle and kind. And I always thought that lyric was really, really impressive. And then as I go through high school, get into marriage. I think I've said it before. I'm married now. I'm in my second marriage, 16 years, love of my life. But when I was young, I got married and I went through a divorce. I went through very many, many trials. I married somebody where I thought, opposites attract. And certainly it was not long lasting, that feeling. We really didn't have much in common at all. And it was very painful 7 years that I went through that. And as I was going through my divorce and felt the failure of that, that I had failed and was really, really down and depressed. I'm pretty open on here. So hopefully it doesn't make anybody too uncomfortable who's new here. But so we talk about the power of music. Well, I listened to a song that I'd heard as a young kid, Carly Simon. My mom and dad, they have the artists that I grew up with that they listened to on car rides and all those kinds of things. Neil Diamond, the Bee Gees, my dad, Eagles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young, and he loved all the Motown stuff and of course the Beatles. And my mom was really into Carly Simon and Barbara Streisand and a few other of the female singers from the 70s. And I remember she got Carly Simon's new album coming around again, and I heard that song, and as a kid, it really shook me up, but it made me realize later on in life, that song meant everything to me when I was going through my divorce when she says, I know nothing stays the same, but if you're willing to play the game, it's coming around again. So don't mind if I fall apart. There's more room in a broken heart, and I believe in love. And just that right there, that was a saving song for me as I was going through the heartache of a divorce. So that was great advice to me, is that there's more room in a broken heart. If you're willing to play the game, it's coming around again. And then when she used Itsy Bitsy Spider as the song that she was singing, that choir with the children singing, that was just so brilliant how she used that, because it's all about going after it again and not being afraid, even though you could get your heart broken again, that it's coming around again, if you're willing to play the game. Victoria, Victoria Home Proud. Cheers from Toronto, Canada. Thank you so much. Keep it up. Yes, we will definitely do that. I appreciate that, Victoria. And so that was a powerful song. When I was a kid, I was a huge Springsteen fan. I remember the day that Tunnel of Love came out, I went out and bought it. It was different than Born in the USA. When I listened to Born in the USA, it had 7 top 10 hits. It was very radio friendly. I started to get into Springsteen, Born to Run, and all those great songs. And then Tunnel of Love was totally different. It was like he came out of left field after having this massive blockbuster album. He came with this really personal album. We covered it before. I believe it was on the New Standards. Tunnel of Love is truly one of the great standards. It's a song that should go back and look at a second time. It described kind of a carnival ride using that imagery symbolically to describe a relationship. And we used to have a fair growing up. It's called the Eastern Idaho State Fair. And it's a really cool county fair that had rides and great food, and all this kind of stuff, the animals. And every year, I think I've only missed a couple of years. I go back to Blackfoot, Idaho and go to the Eastern Idaho State Fair. So as I was listening to Tunnel of Love growing up, and I heard this imagery, it was incredible, because you watch the roller coaster and symbolically of what life is and what relationships are like. And later on, it meant more to me. But as my first marriage was ending, and as I was getting back out there and taking the advice of one Carly Simon, I thought about that song. I listened to Tunnel of Love a lot, but it's that last line that I want to talk about. It's one of my favorite pieces of advice. Is ought to be easy, ought to be simple enough. Man, let's see. There we go. Okay, I'm making that a little bit bigger screen so I can see you better. Well, ought to be easy, ought to be simple enough. Man meets a woman and they fall in love, but this house is haunted and the ride gets rough. You got to learn to live with what you can't rise above if you want to ride on down in through this tunnel of love. And that is incredible advice from the boss, because that's exactly what it is. The house is haunted. The relationship, when the honeymoon is over and you're getting into that relationship, ride gets rough. You got to learn to live with what you can't rise above. There are things that no matter how great it is, there are things that there's give and take in a relationship. And Springsteen captured that perfectly. Another one that I love is Joni Mitchell, and honestly, this is a tough one to talk about because you could do an entire 2-hour segment, 2-hour video, a documentary just breaking both sides now, the song down. It's incredible to me. And we'll do that because it's worth doing that. Joni Mitchell, one of the greatest songs ever. And if you listen to her early version of it, of course, it's Joni as a young woman, and it's more bright eyed song. It's got more hope the way that she sings it. But as she has gone through life, and you listen to her recording of Both Sides Now that was released about a decade ago, when she's gone through all the experiences of life, it's incredible. It's like she and Frank Sinatra have this incredible talent that in their voice. It's this timbre in their voice that is incomparable. No singer really comes close to it. She has it in spades. The way that she talks about this and the experiences that she's been through, um, you can hear that in this version of the song. But the lyric that I love, and again, there's so many lyrics inside Both Sides Now that are incredible, is but now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads. They say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. And I just love that lyric because that's exactly what life is like as we go through changes in our lives, and as we become more aware of who we are and the experiences that we have. We're going to lose friends along the way because they may not see things the same way. But it's that richness that we find in life that carries us through. One of the things that Joni Mitchell said in an interview is that she said, I always cop out in all my songs, no matter how bleak they get. They have something at the end that said, where she's talking about, well, there's something lost, something gained in living every day. Like even in Both Sides Now, and she's talking about that, she says there's something at the end of each verse that sort of lifts it out of where it's going. So I still have some optimism left. I love that quote. I think that's incredible. Joni Mitchell, we'll come back to that one because Both Sides Now, it's just the different way that we look at life. We look at it in the positive light, and then we have those trials and experiences like opposition in all things as we experience both sides, and I love that. And then some of my other favorites, and we'll get into the last part of this is I love Sting all this time. Men go crazy in congregations, but they only get better one by one, one by one, one by one. I love that. I always that's you think about that. That's very very deep. And yeah, I see a comment in here about Sade, "Kiss of Life." Very true. A lot of great stuff there. Um, and again, this is just how I feel right now. If I were to do this again tomorrow, I would have 9 or 10 other songs that I would talk about. There are 2 or 3 that always stick. The greatest advice I've ever received from a song. And I'm going to get into those now. Um, what I've learned through my years of living, and I still have a ton to learn. I'm still progressing. I'm still trying to figure it out. But the most important lesson I've learned up to this point is forgiveness. To me, life is all about learning to forgive and receive forgiveness, ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness is so important. Love, of course, but love happens when forgiveness happens. I love Kenny Loggins' "Conviction of the Heart." It's one of my favorite songs of all time. I've been really fortunate to have spent a lot of time with Kenny Loggins and discussed this song at length, and we'll share that down the road. This is one of my favorite songs, one of the songs I live by. I love when he says, "Do we forget or forgive? There's a whole other life waiting to be lived when one day we're brave enough to talk with conviction of the heart." So powerful. Do we forget or forgive instead of a little play on words there. There is a whole other life just waiting to be lived. If we live our life with bitterness, where's that going to get us? If we're able to forgive and to move on and to find that peace and to have that love, um, then there's a whole other life that can open up for us. I love how he says that. Another thing where he says, how long must we wait to change the world bound in chains that we live in, to know what it is to forgive and be forgiven? As I said, I love that. The living years kind of, I'm talking about a few songs that all have the same thing, or same theme, excuse me. The living years, when he says, so we open up a quarrel between the present and the past. We only sacrifice the future. It's the bitterness that lasts. So don't yield to the fortunes you sometimes see as fate. It may have a new perspective on a different day. And if you don't give up and don't win, you may just be okay. I love that. Again, let the bitterness go and allow the forgiveness to come through. And to me, the wisest advice or lyrics about forgiveness for me, and one of my favorite songs ever, if I had to name my 5 favorite songs, this would be near the top of those 5. I've talked about it before, The Heart of the Matter by Don Henley. And there's so much in that song where, song is obviously about, I have the chance to interview Mike Campbell coming up, of course, Tom Petty's right hand for many years, and who co-wrote most of the music on this. The music, this was written by J.D. Souther and Don Henley. But you better believe the first thing I'm going to ask him is about The Heart of the Matter. Anyway, to me, on the surface, if you read these lyrics about The Heart of the Matter, I got the call today I didn't want to hear, but I knew it would come. An old true friend of ours was talking on the phone. She said, you found someone, which basically means that she's an ex-lover has found somebody else. And he thinks about all the struggles they went through and how they lost themselves. And it goes through, but I think the message can be used for anything, because when he talks about, he wrote this back, in 1989 or late 88. And he even said live that he took him, 10 or 15 minutes to write the song, but it really took him 40 years to write it. I love that. But it's like Don Henley is a seer. He's a rock and roll seer, no matter what you think. I mean, he wrote things back in the late 80s that we're experiencing right now. These times are so uncertain. There's a yearning undefined, people filled with rage. We all need a little tenderness. How can love survive in such a graceless age? If that doesn't describe the world we live in, I don't know what does. The trust and self-assurance that lead to happiness, they're the very things we kill, I guess. Pride and competition cannot fill these empty arms. And the work I put between us, it doesn't keep me warm. I mean, oodles and oodles of just wisdom from him. And I think about this song a lot with my dad having passed, even though Henley wrote the song and it wasn't about this, but I said the meaning is universal. When he talks about the Jughead one, greetings to you from London, Adam, my brother. Love your series on 70s. Bring back great memories for me as a kid. Love and respect, bro. Thank you very much. The Jughead one, I really appreciate that. We will continue 70s, 80s, 60s, all that. Back into the song, the advice it's given. My favorite part is the bridge of the song when he says, there are people in your life who've come and gone. They let you down. They hurt your pride. You better put it all behind you because life goes on. You keep carrying that anger. It will eat you up inside. And then, of course, he gets to the chorus, which is, been trying to get down to the heart of the matter, but my will gets weak and my thoughts seem to scatter, but I think it's about forgiveness. And he's absolutely right. That is what it's all about. It's all about forgiveness. And that's what I'm learning in life. And I think a lot about my dad is the struggles that we went through growing up, where the things that did connect us were music and baseball, especially music, but we didn't see eye to eye on anything else. And there's a lot that we had to go through to get to the relationship that we had before he passed. And a lot of that had to do with forgiveness. And I think about this song all the time, that it has taught me so much in my life about letting the bitterness subside and not carrying that anger. We all have trauma that we've experienced going through life. You didn't know this would be a psychology session, but but that's what music is. Great music is therapy. But I think that this song is very therapeutic. It's a therapy session, if you will, in what, 5 minutes or however long the song is. It just really puts it in perspective about you can't move on with your life. You can't find love or have peace, real peace, until you're able to let go of that anger and forgive, even if that person has wronged you and done those things. It's forgiveness. And Don Henley, it's like he wrote a sequel to this in a way with My Thanksgiving. I saw somebody quote that in the comments when I talked about that we were going to do this live stream. They talked about My Thanksgiving from his album, and it's a great song. It's like a sequel to that, My Thanksgiving. And then New York Minute. I mean, other great advice. You find somebody to love in this world, you better hold on tooth and nail, because the wolf is always at the door. I mean, there's so The End of the Innocence, the song, that whole album is just full of great rock and roll wisdom, as they say. And to end on, because we've gone about 27 minutes here, gosh, again, you could talk about this forever. And I didn't even cover half the songs that I wanted to. These were ones that just came up. The last thing is the song that I live by, the mantra that I live by, really truly is do the right thing and don't give up. I mean, those are the two things that I live by. But I live by the lyric of a song that's by Bruce Cockburn, "Lovers in a Dangerous Time." Now, "Lovers in a Dangerous Time" is actually a song that I had a chance to sit down with the great Mr. Cockburn from Canada and speak with him about at length. And I have the story of that, and we'll release it down the road. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. That was a very special interview that I did with Bruce Cockburn. It was back right before the pandemic hit. It was in February of 2019. And it was one where my dad actually came to the interview and actually witnessed it. It was a few months before he passed. So it's really special to me. It's not only because my dad was there, but also because I got to ask Bruce Cockburn about one of my favorite songs of all time, "Lovers in a Dangerous Time." It's a song that was covered by the Bare Naked Ladies some years ago. And it's just an incredible, just rich song that actually Bono himself quoted in U2's song "God 2." He actually quoted it, this exact line, but this is the line that I live by. If I had to have something on my headstone when I pass away, this would be it. It's nothing worth having comes without some kind of fight. You got to kick at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. To me, that brings together, you can never give up, and you always have to do the right thing no matter how hard it is. Even if the darkness pervades, you got to kick at that darkness until it bleeds daylight. To me, that's some of the greatest advice that I've ever heard in a song. And so those are some of my experiences, some of my thoughts on these songs. Let me know down in the comments if this is something that we should do again. This is something that could be really pretty cool, is to do rock and roll wisdom. And maybe we talk about the lyric of the rock and roll wisdom, and we actually get the artist's take on it, and we break it down that way. Sometimes I get a little deep, but that's me. Anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We appreciate Zenni Eyewear for being our sponsor, and we thank you for showing up to this live stream. Let us know in the comments what you think and what your thoughts are, and what great song advice that you have and that you've received, and we'll cover more of this in the future. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. And I hope that everybody out there is happy and healthy, and really appreciate your time today. Thank you. Got to figure out how to end this. See ya.